Hey! What's up, listeners? It's Mitch. It's Mike. This is Mitch and Mike's voiceover journey.
I'm Mike.
And you're not, though. And I have a frog. Hey, we got a super guest, and his name is Brendan Hunter.
Hi.
And
Hi, Brendan.
he coaches Mitch. So Mitch is as wonderful as he is, in part because of Brendan. So if you love Mitch, then we have a guy that you can talk to about making Mitch Mitch. If you hate Mitch, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Pretty normal. You're probably on the normal spectrum.
Probably.
Hey, before you get rolling, you guys, I wanted to surprise both of you with something that you have in common. And I would have you guess, but this could take forever. You've both, of anyone who's been on this show, been in my basement. Isn't that great?
That's great. I don't. Hey, first of all, Brendan, why don't you say hello? Because we haven't even heard you say boo yet.
Well, I was going to, but you both seem so invested in this story. I wanted to make sure there was space for it. And also, it looked like we may have been freezing for a second there, so I was like, well, maybe I should go at 480p and really smooth out these middle-aged fine lines.
Yeah. It'd be pretty scary if we went 4K.
Yeah,
I see a lot of age in this room, a lot of age.
Yeah. Don't look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brendan, so we had a talk before. Yeah, Brendan is, he says, a child of the 70s. And I'm like, oh, good. Well, Mike was born in 1970. Brendan, I think, was probably born on December 31st, 1979.
I kissed it as it was going by.
Yeah.
Good job, you.
So technically he's a child of the 70s, but I still have almost 10 years on him. But hey, Brendan, great to have you. And yes, we have both existed in Mitch's basement, which, listeners, take that for what, imagine that as, if you will. But yeah, I too got to visit Mitch in Detroit once, and we had a good time. But Mitch, what are you doing,
Ask your questions,
bro?
Mike. I don't know. We haven't recorded in a while. I'm just making it.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, for those of you listening, the past few weeks, the interviews and the podcasts have been pre-recorded because I've been on pretty much a month-long vacation. Mitch went to VO Atlanta, so we've both been out of pocket here and there, and so we had to really put some things in the can, if you will, to be there for the weeks that we weren't recording. Yeah. Now we're live, so like this one, we're recording on, what the heck is today? The 7th, and we'll post it on the 10th. So, you'll get fresh Brendan Hunter instead of waiting a month, and like, oh, this guy could be dead by now. But anyway, so Brendan, hey, what we do is he just
Already, yeah.
All right,
Shit.
well, that wraps up today's show. So you've been, I'm assuming been in VO for a while if you're a coach now. Is it safe to say that you have a performing background, that at some point, you've done more than VO? Why don't you kind of tell us?
I did my first movie in 1980.
Oh, my goodness.
So this is thanks to parents who were of a certain theatrical persuasion, and my mother was an actress and my father was into special effects and set building, and so I got a lot of exposure kind of by proxy as a child. And when my parents split up, my mother kind of raised us with a certain amount of theatrical nature in our play. Like at home, we were doing skits, we were doing, we would put on a family concert, like a seasonal concert around the holidays.
Sounds like
and
a
so
blast.
I just assumed that this was what everyone's life was like. Divorced parents, and you played and dressed up with your mom. That's pretty similar to everybody's experience.
Close. Sure.
But yeah, once I became a young adult, I moved out west, and like a Tom Waits song, was looking to become notorious, and started my journey in the Vancouver, Victoria, British Columbia region, so just above Seattle there, and was getting work as a professional artist in the Prairie province of Alberta. So I live in Calgary now and have since 2001, where I started my professional voice acting journey in 2002 with things like Dragon Ball and things that I couldn't believe I was being allowed to participate in right out of the gate. But this was the opportunity I was allotted, and I failed forward and got better at it until I wasn't total shite. And then here we are, 103 years later.
Wait, that math.
Well, sometimes the maths that we use are for our own perspective, not for the general population. But
See, he's
it has
doing
been a long
technique, Mitch, called exaggeration.
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of this before.
Not me.
I think you guys call them alternative facts.
For effect.
Alternative facts? That was big with you guys.
Alternative facts, yes. It's not a lie. It's an alternative fact.
Oh, boy.
Right.
So take us back to 2001, 2002. Young Brendan moves to the West Coast. And what was that like? I mean, when you moved out there fresh, I mean, obviously, being from a performing family, being from, in your first movie, presumably as an infant in 1980.
I had limited range, yeah.
Yeah. No, cry with a little more feeling.
Actually, I had a task. I had to pour juice on my head, and, you can't really get a toddler or an infant. I mean, I wasn't an infant. I was like 9 months old or whatever. But you can't get them to do that on command. You can hope that, hey. Sometimes I would drink it. Sometimes I'd go to do it. I probably ruined a lot of takes. But you want to talk about the early 2000s? Well, okay, strap in. Mitch was a child. Mitch was a junior high.
Mitch was a fetus. Yeah.
Were you now? Okay.
In 2002.
Yeah,
I guess maybe you would be.
Sure. Well, certainly, I was under the impression that you had to go to certain places to be a professional artist, right? So in Canada, that's Vancouver and Toronto.
Okay.
I grew up just outside of Winnipeg, which is the center of North America, and was going to be the train yard to rival all. Anyways, then we got over trains pretty quick. But after Winnipeg didn't work out, and I was rural outside, like I was right on the North Dakota border, about 5 miles from the North Dakota border.
Okay.
And I grew up in a 5,000 person town that was quite religious, mostly in the Mennonite faith. So that was really new for me. And so I learned a lot, but I also felt that it was rather narrow, that this type of community and this type of lifestyle just had a certain amount of boundaries on it that just made me feel a bit claustrophobic. And so when I moved out to the West Coast, it was with the intention that that's what you have to do. You got to go where the work is, and that's fine. That was an understandable pursuit. And I did start my professional career out there, and I had an agent in Vancouver, and I was doing the auditions, and I started getting some professional theater that was a co-production with other theaters across the country. So by 19, I was working as a professional touring theater actor and going and playing some of the large houses across our country. And I kept going back to Van and hoping that would become worthwhile and that they would say, hey, good job out there on the road, but no one ever cares. And I was one of a myriad of young Caucasian male actors at the time who was just, doing the auditions, hoping that somehow you just like break through, but you didn't actually really have anything to offer yet. You're just a young, hopeful person. And so coming to Calgary and reimagining what I could be, and then starting to be a film producer, and I've created feature films, documentaries, touring live shows of my own. That's what I was doing when Feb 2020 said, this will be your last show for a bit. I was touring my own shows, and I was really excited that I'd gotten to that level. So it's been this cool 20-year journey of I went where I was wanted, and I built what I wanted where I was.
Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love hearing of other people's ambition and drive to be creative like that, because I like to think I'm a creative, but have had ideas but have never pushed them past the idea phase, other than small things, like writing a show for church youth that I've done that several times, but and something on that level. But for you to be there in the mix, being a performer, and then go, all right, well, this isn't, not that it wasn't what you wanted it to be, but you, like you said, you weren't getting the notice that you thought you would, and it sounds like you took that and you went, all right, I'm going to make this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start producing. I'm going to start making my own things. Is that kind of how it happened? You're like, not screw this, but like, this isn't exactly what I want, so I'm going to start making it what I want.
Yeah, well, and certainly, like, I quit my last real job in 2006, and it was really because I'd taken those years to try to figure out a way to start having some degree of agency and ownership in what is a really, any artist will tell you, like a really non-linear and really tumultuous life. Even when you have a job, you're looking for a job, and that's fine. But there was kind of only one way I could see, which was you have to have some ownership. You have to be a part of production. You have to be on that side. Otherwise, like, I've got friends on crew. I see what that life is like. That's really difficult. And of course, as an artist waiting for opportunities, I understand why so many people can't keep going. It's not that they can't hack it. It's that it's not sustainable. So what I was trying to do is like I guess mid 2000s, I would have been, mid late 20s, was I got to that point where I was like, well, if I don't take some ownership, I'm going to have to go and do something else. And then it was, well, how do you do that? And how do you get people to believe in you and invest in you and create a product that you think is viable and learn sales and learn business as a ADHD artist? Like, that's not going to be likely an easy journey, but what else you got? What's your... I actually looked at going back to school at that point and going into medicine like my stepfather is, and they were like, as a mature student, you'll need to retake high school. I'm like, the what? And they're like, well, your maths and sciences are 10 years out of date. Like, what you would need to do now is retake grade 10, 11, and 12 maths and sciences, challenge the exams, and then you can go in for placement on them. Like, I can't. There's no way I'm going to do all of that. There's no way.
Wow.
It was. And so actually, I bought the books, like $800 worth of books to get back into grade 10. And I started going through. I was like, right, grade 10 is when I started to really feel stupid in math. Like, I really lost the plot on math. I'd been a really confident student, and then we moved into things that my brain wasn't terribly wired well to do. And it was like, well, this will be a great chance to own it. And I looked through it, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is not where my brain is at. This is not how my brain works. So to force myself to go through this, like Mitch said, would have been like a nightmare. And so eventually I had to kind of go, I guess by default, I'm an artist. And what am I going to do about that? And that's when I took a real hard bent and I started making some short films, then some documentaries, then some feature films. And, I was feeling the trajectory. I was touring film festivals. I was meeting great people. My movie was going to Walmart and what was HMV at the time, which was another outlet for hard media. And this was 2011. And then 2011 was also the end of hard media. In 2012, we stopped seeing real buy-ins for the DVD Blu-ray market. And our product was only $1 million Canadian film. Like, it just didn't have the legs that you need to compete in the world marketplace. And so we were getting $5,000 from Spain. I'm like, $5,000? Like, I got $1 million of outstanding investors here that I need to appease before we can get parity, or at least get an ROI that they're comfortable with, but not 100% write-off. So we were chipping away at this thing, and I'm like, it's insurmountable. I got to pivot again. And so I started investing more in me as the product, and that allowed me to do my own convention touring as a VA guest, and then starting to be more of a VA teacher and now director, and just try to take some reins of a life that you got to build your own wagon and train your own horses from birth, and start going, well, the only way it works is when I run my own little weird system, and it works for the way that I understand how to make things work.
Yeah, it seems not everyone has that sort of cutoff where it's like, okay, so this is it now. Like, time to jump or
poop or get off the pot.
Yeah.
And I was getting married.
Yeah.
We were buying a house, and by the time that first movie was in production, we had a 9-month-old. I was thinking, this is the only way that I'll be able to be a responsible husband, father, provider, is own my trajectory. And you do all the work, and you're like, oh, it's never going to get paid off. It's never going to actually create that cyclical kind of planting and harvest that you were hoping to do, because most people need 2 to 5 films to get them into a momentum where they're actually able to start doing that ecosystem. So if the first one doesn't somehow just help you do that, and I think I was pretty close, but it was going to be too hard with a wife on mat leave, a little baby, and a new mortgage. And so carrying that much debt just meant that we had to pivot and change tact.
So had you done voiceover work in addition to the film work? And
yeah, I had been doing voice work since about 2002.
Okay.
And so I did probably 1,000 episodes of anime and video games from 2002
That's right. You
to
said
2010.
Dragon Ball. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And some of those studios are non-union, so I don't work with them anymore. But it was the absolute, it was an absolute joy to be able to do that kind of work, especially when it was seemingly accessible. I didn't do anything special. I had an agent, sure, but I went to the open general call and I did my audition, and they said stick around, and then they asked me to come and sign a contract saying that I would kind of be on roster and that they could contact me and offer me roles or offer me auditions. And it just felt all so surreal that I just kind of was like, well, I guess, until the checks started cashing and the product started being shown on television. I'm like, this is bonkers. Like, how did this happen? I'm so grateful. And I'm having such an amazing time watching these, because with dub work, you get to watch the show, watching these shows, being told, that's you, turn to page 26. Here's your lines, kid. We'll beep you in. Good luck. And you're like, really? We're doing this? And learning how to get better at that until you don't just live in low self-confidence, but you start to actually feel empowered that, holy crap, I'm doing it. And it's starting to be fun. It's starting to be a really enthusiastic contribution instead of this kind of tentative and hesitant. Am I good yet? You start to actually have this ownership of, I like doing this. I like what I do. I like that they like me too. Like it's feeling like a pretty good relationship. And then going to conventions as a con goer myself, and like going to tables and meeting artists and meeting actors and being like, holy shit, you're in the same show as me. You're just happen to live in Vancouver and I live in Calgary, but we both talk to the same studios over our headset. Oh my, what if? Hi, you don't know me, but what would it look like if I came and sat at a table at your convention? No, I'm not asking for any money at all. Oh, that's a deal? That's a deal? Okay, great, I'll be there. Until I could start saying, hey, I'd like to come to your convention like Detroit. I'm not asking for the world, but can we make sure that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and then they're paying for hotels and they're giving you a per diem to eat and they're making sure that you make a minimum threshold in the weekend. You're like, wow, this is a game changer for most artists that don't have something that is going to pay them more than the one time that they did the product.
Right. And so that tentativeness or that tension in the booth, how quickly did that dissipate? When did you finally let your hair down and let yourself flow in front of all of that?
I don't know if there's a defining moment. I think like anything that's cumulative, we talk about the 10,000 hour rule for expertise, right? You go put 10,000 hours into anything and you'll frickin' know what you're talking about. Boy, that sounded really Canadian.
Yeah, know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, for sure, bud. But all to say that I don't have a defining moment, but I do remember that once I started to see things on TV and I wasn't mad at it, that I had a certain new perspective that. Because everyone's afraid, right? Everyone's got this fear and this imposter syndrome, and that they're going to be, I don't know, found out or excluded in the future because, we figured it out, you're actually no good. And that wasn't happening. And so as the series, because, I did Dragon Ball GT, which wasn't like a fan favorite, but I was like, well, that's fine. I'm not trying to be anything other than a working artist. And from that, they asked me to do Dragon Ball as a character that had already been done on Dragon Ball Z. And I'm like, oh, well, why aren't you guys just asking him? And the Cole's notes of that was that they would rather work with me. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what this is. I like you too. I mean, you want to have a friendship? And I thought that, if those were the types of meaningful connections and relationships you could have with your directors, your engineers, the studios that you were working with, then I was just going to be like a nice, easygoing, playful guy that if they wanted to keep hiring me, I'd keep saying yes. Who was mad? I'm not negotiating my contract over again because now I think I've got some clout. It was like, so happy to be here. Let me learn. And I was taking all of their workshops and making sure that I was really pushing myself Mitch might know this story, but one of the roles that I got kind of later in my time with them was around this idea. And Mike, you might know these things, but a lot of our protagonist or teenage male characters are played by women because they can do the youthful male voice, but their voice doesn't crack. We never lose it, right? So you got your Nancy Cartwrights, you got that kind of world that can always do boyish voices, and we don't let young boys or teens typically do those jobs because of the insustainability.
Right.
And so I made some flippant remark to one of our casting agents, why do the women get the men's roles, but the men never get the women's roles? Keep in mind, I'm like 25. Yeah. It's a different time period. It's the mid-2000s. You can get away with more. But they're like, okay, well, audition. And I come in and I'm doing my lady voice. I've got a lady voice. And they're like, no, you don't. I'm like, nuts. They're like,
not quite, but
no, they're like, that's the problem is you have nuts. No, I'm just kidding.
But they're like, no problem. Because, I'm not really like living in my gravel pit right now, but because I have a lot of bass baritone depth to my voice, they were often making me like muscly headed, fighty dudes. I liked it. It was fun. And it was also nice because I'm a 5'7" Caucasian skinny boy. So the fact that my voice had been working against me in a lot of my other work, like I would go out for roles in, let's say, a musical production that was going to go on tour, and they're like, you're 23 and a bass baritone. Come back in 20 years. Like, you can play the villain in 20 years, and we've got all kinds of things for you. But you're not a bad-looking kid, but you're not a tenor, and we need you to be. And so I was taking vocal lessons to try to get up into those upper ranges. And now I was behind the microphone being celebrated for this depth of my voice, which had always been kind of a problem for the visual representation that I was doing. So if I spoke down here, they were like, hey, we can't do anything with that. So I learned how to speak up here and have my customer service voice all the time. Oh. But this had taught them something that they didn't know, which was that I had a lot of subfloors, but they didn't know about the floors above grade. And so we started to play in those, and I started to get all these foppish dandies and villains with like real kind of like articulate and somewhat effeminate. Okay. And it was like, yeah, I'll absolutely just increase my basket and do more solutions of characters, absolutely. And then some of those have now become the ones people want to talk about more than even the Dragon Ball things, which never was going to be on my way of estimating how this would go, because Dragon Ball fans are so committed and for like forever. So this has been a really cool journey of like exploring, and to your point, Mitch, I think it's about being vulnerable and being brave, because, you're allowed to be afraid, but like keep trying and keep seeing what else you can do, because then you open up new markets or new opportunities that you wouldn't have even known about if you hadn't kind of failed into them, like not being able to do a passable female character or female presenting voice. That was great, because then they gave me this other echelon of opportunities, which taught me a lot about, hey, let's have a broad net and do big casting.
Yeah, that's wild. And maybe that played into, there was a time we were training. I didn't understand it at the time. It was a character I was emotional about, the woman I was with or something like that. And you cracked me open. You got me to do a thing. And I was like, I nailed that, dude. You're like, yeah, but more. And you just kept cracking, and there was more. It's like, there isn't not more, it's just something else. It's more raw or more emotional or even less. It could be void of emotion because of whatever.
Sometimes it's more trust, right? It doesn't have to be bigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just trusting yourself more.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard critique to give people, because I've been on the receiving end of that, where they're like, let's go again, but just trust that you've got it. You don't have to prove it. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Sorry. And all of a sudden, you are going through this process of like whittling away and like trying to do less, but self-judging that, well, now I'm not doing enough. Now I'm not doing something. I'm just showing up. And they're like, yeah. No. Me is not enough. And they're like, yeah, it is. Wait, what? They're like, yeah, you are enough. And I didn't believe that for a long time until it started to be okay to trust more and more that authenticity that you're really precious about, because it's vulnerable. You don't share it with a lot of people. You might have a best friend or a partner that gets to know, But other than that, you keep that stuff under lock because you've been hurt and you want to keep the armor intact. But the actor doesn't have that luxury. They got to be vulnerable. They got to be honest. And that rawness is what helps with people connecting to that character, or even saying things like, that got me through something. I didn't know anybody else that was feeling that way, but a character reminded me that I wasn't alone. And you're like,
right.
whoa, of course. Of course. And then that's what you start to take into your future is, I don't have to be a Mel Blanc. I don't have to have 1,000 voices. I don't have to be all these things that other people might want a voice actor to be. But what I'll try to be is bravely vulnerable. Yeah, I can do that. I can get better at that. I'll try.
Yeah, and that's something that that I've struggled with. I came into this being a guy who likes to do voices, and I thought that's what voiceover called for, and I hid behind that, and so I had to kind of get me and that vulnerability of just who I am, like coaxed out of me from coaches, and I still at times don't trust my own voice, and I still at times, try to hide behind the voices. I love to do characters because it's just so fun to find the voice of that craggly, prospector or whatever. It's fun to find those voices, but I don't trust myself as my own voice, being, acting and doing something. And that's something I'm getting over, both commercially and, character wise, that I don't always have to find the funny voice. Sometimes that voice is just me, and I just got to put my own emotions behind it and do that. I'm looking forward to, Mitch and I are both involved in some audio dramas with a guy named Jason Beard that, Shoestring TV, and he's got a role in mind for me that is just going to be, there isn't a voice to it. He wants it just to be me and raw. And so I'm looking forward to challenging myself in doing that.
I'm pumped about that too. Though I love Keith. I love Mike too.
Keith, it's a Keith.
Yeah. And that, I think, only recently have I really found what that feels like when you just let yourself kind of like, whew, okay, Mitch has got this. Like you were saying, that the confidence that you have in, say, your New York voice, Mike, when you roll into that, I know you're ready. I can finally...
I got that at the ready all the time.
It's right there. It's literally
right
there. And I finally, found a couple moments where I'm like, there. It's really wild, the same confidence that flows over you when you have the perfect character voice. It happens when you're just Brendan or Mike or Mitch or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and two, even commercials, right? Not even, animation, Mitch and I both, and most of our guests is my dream is to be in, a children's show, or to be in a long running, show where I'm a character, and so we all have that, but you gotta open yourself up to other genres. And so commercials, I found myself at the end of last year, probably for the last few months I was really, anytime I auditioned for a commercial, I was, okay, what's the spec and what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for this and that. And so I became that. And it was my voice, but it was a character. It was a caricature of me trying to be the conversational guy or the, whatever. And I lost myself and the things that make me unique. And so I talked to one of our coaches, one of our mutual coaches, David Rosenthal with GVAA, and he's been a real help. And I'm really doing my best this year to find me again, to put Mike Pelletier into the commercial reads, where it's not just, you want conversational, but it's got to have a little bit of my sarcasm to it and a little bit of my quirkiness and that. Otherwise, why do you want to hire me if I sound like every other middle-aged white guy?
Well, and your job is to be the better you. So your brand should be the better you. And then you have to figure out what the heck that means, because you know that there are things that you're kind of becoming, but they're not there yet. But can you try them out? oh, I can actually practice them with my work now, and that's my brand. And if that's being well received, then that's easier and easier to start to imbue into not just your work, but who you are. And then that symbiosis of your brand becomes this really kind of recognizable thing, is what I kind of get from what you're saying is, yeah, you and I could take the specs on a copy and be like, oh, I'll adapt. Yeah. But if I lose the brand of me that's within it, then I'm going to fall into that 80% of forgettable, competent VA.
I'm going to sound just like everybody else.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a really good thing to start to be okay with, because when people are like, yeah, when am I going to be good? It's like, well, I mean, it's really about your relationship with yourself that's going to change, and then you're going to start to have a relationship with yourself that includes the becoming you, the better you, the you that you're trying out, and then, you know what, there's another you after that. And these layers or facets of us that keep coming. You know, when we look at our breakdowns, and, you know, we might see like a, hey, looking for a Jeff Goldblum or a Morgan Freeman kind of vibe. We know not to do a mimicry. We know to include what that feels like to us. And that we can make some assessments on that based on that brand has been curated. I know why that brand works. I know what starts to be exciting for people. They feel comfortable. They feel that they can recognize something and know it and trust it, and that's wonderful. How does that unique person do it with their brand? A little bit like this, a little bit like that. Happy to do that. So I love that that's something that we're all coming to on our own, because the whole reason to be a brand of you is to be the best version of you that you think is coming, is possible, and then check if people agree. I think it's wonderful that we live in a place where we can say we are whatever we want to be, and then we have to prove it. And you might have to prove it over and over again, but in that tempering of proving it, you actually prove it to yourself as much as you're doing it to them, and you start to actually look in the mirror and go, I see you. Hey, keep going. You're doing it. I don't have to be at the end of anything to say, keep going. I'm proud of you. So I love that for all of us, because these are weird vessels that we inhabit, but they're also adaptive in real time, which a lot of people are only starting to figure out in their 20s, that I put in work and I change. Yeah, for sure. Like, that's how it works. I struggle and my body adapts. Yeah, mind and spirit too, pal. What do you want to do about that? I don't know yet. That's okay, but you're going to start figuring that out, and you're going to start actually being pretty appreciative of the challenge eventually, because that's what got you to glow up, to blossom out.
Took to my 30s to learn some of that, but yeah, I'm happy.
Better your 30s than your 40s.
That's for sure.
Or your 50s.
I'm appreciative of looking at younger people, you know, that are doing it already, and I'm like, yes, like, get it. That's amazing. I cannot believe that anyone figured that out when they were 22. That, like, oh, the struggle's good. Shit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Me? Oh.
Yeah, you had more.
Oh, I had more. Well,
you had more.
I guess it's more about, you talked about failing up, and you talked about
pulling it out of you.
Yeah, you talked about failing up and all the pivots you had to make. You know, it was failing in a sense. It felt hard at the moment, but obviously, I've watched you build stuff just in our relationship. And now it feels like you have this thing you're doing, and I need to know what that thing is, because I've only seen it from a distance. So I can't even say what the thing is, because you have a thing going on right now, and I want to know what it is.
What's that thing?
What's the thing, Brendan?
Tell me about that thing.
Well, I've transitioned to directing, which is a really nice way of... because I was a pretty hesitant teacher for quite a while. I was like, who am I? I'm just some working guy that gets to do this once in a while. How dare I try to helm, an education space for people that are really interested in this? Until, like you and I went through, it's exactly what working talent should do. They should have someone to, like, share with them how their journey went and how their kind of exploration went, because it's unique and it's not replicable. But it does help the teacher to kind of solidify that, you know what, it was hard. And because of that, I now stand on a foundation that I feel is really solid, because it's all of the broken bits. I'm not standing on accolades. I'm standing on all the broken trials and tribulations, and now my head's above water. So, to be directing now, and I'm about to sign a contract for a second game, which is like the first game is going to be kind of an independent, and it's great. You know, it's a third-person shooter. It's got lots of kind of fantasy elements and an upgradable kind of futuristic suit that kind of has a nice combination. If you've ever seen Army of Darkness, where Bruce Campbell's character is thrust into like medieval times, but he's got his car and he's got his science manuals and he's got his chainsaw and his boomstick. And it feels a little bit like that in a certain way, because this is like a medieval village and it's got kind of like, let's say, a temporal dome around it. And in his in the characters kind of stumbling into this world, they're a modern man, but they're just a regular guy, right? They're just one of us. And now that they're there, they're confronted with the challenges of this environment. It's going to be very fun and very cool. It's called Beyond the Oaks. Looking forward to releasing it probably in the fall or right before Christmas. And it'll be on... my understanding is that we're doing a limited run of hard copies, but that it will be digitally available on all platforms. So you got your Steam, you got your consoles, you got your PCs.
So PC, console, okay.
Yeah. This is the first video game you've directed?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And so Beyond the Oaks is like available for pre-order on Steam right now, and you know, it's got a good trailer, and we're working through the voice acting right now, and it's been really fun. And because of that, I was asked if I would host like the gaming conference for our province. So there was, I don't know, 500 people, and I was the host for the weekend event. And it was because I have this background in voicing the stuff, and they like to kind of include people like us. And it was cool because they're all program and dev people, and they're lovely, but most of them are not actors. And so what was nice was to meet all of these people on their journey, and going to, like, in Canada, we've got this convention called GameCon. So I think it's in its third year, coming up in June, and it's the video game conference for our country, and it's been going really well. And what I'm meeting is a lot of people that are from my surrounding areas that have great development studios and don't know how to fill this last piece in with the VO. So it's been a really nice relationship where now that I've I've built my bigger studio. When I was working with Mitch, it was just like a 3x3 in the laundry room, which was great. It got us through COVID, but still, now that I've got an 8x9 foot, it's like, it's a whole separate room, and I can have multiple actors in there at a time. And when I'm just doing remote work, I still have like the workflow and the connections that I need to now be stepping into this realm. And now I'm negotiating contracts that are with major studios and major media companies. And my next one's going to be this very cool game that I'm looking forward to telling people more about it, like in a couple of months, while we kind of get through this NDA and get through the preamble, so that we can do the exciting teaser releases. Because I can't believe that I have the wherewithal, the ability, I don't know what it is, but I was only able to be here now. I couldn't have rushed this. I couldn't have said, yeah, I am this thing, give me the thing. I had to prove it, and I'm getting through that. And while I'm getting through that, people are like, let's do more. I'm in. And I'm like, really? Because I keep thinking it's going to be this long, long path of like making sure that I am going to be. And they're like, we're in. We buy it. You've proven it. Let's do it.
Oh, wow.
And that feels so reassuring in a life that I can only imagine is mostly relatable, is really unreliable. You don't have a linear path that you just get to do A and then B and then C. But now that I'm in my mid-40s, I'm not just excited about, as Mike will tell you, life really begins in your 40s, but that also it can just keep getting better.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I love the fact that you still feel like, it sounds like you still feel like you're arriving. You haven't arrived, right?
Sure.
That it's still like there's still. And I hate not to put a negative thing, but there still feels like there's still kind of a little bit of that imposter syndrome back in there, where it's like, I really get to do this? You really think I'm good at this? Where you're offering me another one? That's fantastic. And so it's cool to hear that it's, no matter where you are in whatever journey you're in, us being, just strictly, we're VO and various levels of success or not success. There is that thrill of, I got the thing. That's amazing. Oh, you're going to give me that thing? That's amazing. And now you're at this point where it's like you're on the other end of it, and there's still that feeling. There's still that, I get to do this. Oh, I get to do this now? Thank you. So, very, very
I think
cool.
a life of gratitude is a difficult thing to cultivate, but once you start to be really grateful that it's hard, and really grateful that it's complicated, and really grateful that it pushes you and beats you up. The other side of that, of course, is that you start to be really, I guess, excited to see what this journey is going to be, and to recognize that it's valuable because it costs so much, that it is this difficult thing.
Yeah.
And then that can be really meaningful. And I think for my own journey of kind of being a scared person, a very analytical person, wanting to take control and have, especially when it comes to the people I care about. I want to be able to like never worry that we're going to miss a bill. That'd be great. But that's just my reality. It's everybody's reality. The idea that we're somehow safe, inherently safe, was a fallacy. And in that kind of game that we were playing, okay, people were playing the game well and they were getting the results that they expected, and they thought that it just meant that they deserved it or that it worked. But I think we've had a real great humbling the last at least 5 years, but I would put it more close to 15. And in that humility, the more that we hold on to what was, or the more that we grip the sand in our palm, the more we recognize that is absolutely backwards. We can't do that. It hurts us. We suffer. And when we suffer, we tend to be not our best selves. So it's okay to be hurt, and it's okay to be healing, and it's okay to be trying. But what you also have to do is be okay with flowing. If you're not flowing, then it's going to be really, really damaging. If you're in the river and you're holding on to the edges of the river, you're going to get cut up and you're going to get hurt. But you might go into this river and be pulled, and it's uncomfortable and it's dangerous and it's scary. But where does it go? Where do rivers go? They go somewhere else.
Waterfall.
They go somewhere big. They go somewhere interesting. Okay. And I, it's an old Bruce Lee quote, but be water, for me, has been really helpful, because the more that I'm rigid and trying to have it go my way, the more I get hurt. Physically and mentally, I get hurt. And I've had to go into this space, which I find really uncomfortable, trusting that it's supposed to go this way. Trying to do a good job, but trusting that it's supposed to be like this. Because if I were to arrive, to use your word, what would that mean? I've had little glimpses of what it might mean to be safe. Like when I go to a convention and people treat you so nice, and all they want to do is tell you that you matter and then give you money. It's like, yeah, that's really nice, but that's not replicable. That's not something that's sustainable. And my credits are quite aged, and I'm okay with that, because a lot of what I am known for is getting dusty, and the fact that it mattered at all, I have to be grateful for. And while I grieve that everything will end, I can also be a part of what's coming new. And if I'm not necessarily in the games, what if I'm hiring people like Mitch and people like Mike and people that I'm really excited to work with? We get to collaborate, we get to work on something together, but then that product goes into the world and it starts a new life cycle. And I think people that are at all levels of production have an opportunity to contribute at those panels, contribute at those conventions, contribute at those tables, whether they're a paid position or not. I think that becomes my inherent value, and that's something that I get to say I own, which is something that most people are waiting to arrive at a place where they are told, now you own the keys to some kingdom. I've made my own kingdom, and I sit on my empire of dirt, and I go, it's kind of neat. It's pretty neat.
Hey guys, did you know?
You know what? You know what happens when you got a really great interview and it just flows, and then you look at the clock and you realize, holy crap, it's been an hour and a half.
I know all about that.
Do you?
Yeah.
'Cause you were there.
I was there, and we had this guest on I want to tell you guys about. His name is Brendan Hunter. Oh, wait, yeah, you're listening right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to split this into two because it's so long and beautiful. We could have had three, but we wanted to cut him off for whatever reason.
We didn't want to edit it down. We because you run long and you think, okay, well, I can cut some of it out. There's nothing to cut out because it's all good stuff.
Juicy.
And we want you to hear it all. So tune in next week for part 2 of Brendan Hunter.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.